Welcome back, everybody. Thank you again. We are going to go through the Reboot Boss Carry Nerf and what you need to know about it. But before we do, I want to say thank you for all the feedback and all the support I received on the previous video about DMT prep. Just a reminder that there is one more DMT for Miracle Summer, DMT Boots. So feel free to check that out in case you have no idea what is going on. With that being said, um, I want to jump right into things. I want to get this video out so you guys know how to best prepare and how I can help you. For those of you who don't know, with the recent release, or not so recent anymore, of the roadmap 244, Nexon will be implementing the not so long awaited reboot boss nerfs. To explain a bit better, Nexon will be implementing a change for all bosses in the reboot world, which is to incentivize individuals from getting rewards from content. Before I get into the specifics of what is being affected, you may need to have a better grasp of the situation. So I'm going to go through that first and I'll mark it down in the timestamps below in case you want to skip over that part. You might already know it. Feel free to let me know how you feel and what changes, if anything, you would bring. Being realistic, of course. Now, firstly, why is this happening? The KMS devs have shared that in KMS Reboot Worlds, 40% of characters that have participated in boss parties have contributed a total or less of 1% damage in party boss fights. The KMS devs have shared that meta of boss carries was not intended for the core gameplay of Reboot and as such adjusted accordingly. While we know this is most likely the same justification for GMS, the numbers may not be an accurate representation of what GMS Reboot has produced. But I guess we'll have to wait for patch notes to confirm. How this was brought up in the first place. KMS players that have previously played in Reg server expressed discontent in the treatment from devs and shared some distaste in the progression in Reboot. Now, while not all of them felt the same way about the game, some players started to migrate to Reboot servers. When they started to migrate, some players started to engage in RMT or real money transactions for carries, while others that have access to a decent network of the player base have just, through endgame players, have just gotten carried through content. Now, while the RMT was most likely the general red flag that kind of put the nail in the coffin, you do have to understand that the reg servers or non-reboot servers do have an impact on Nexon Korea's bottom line as their main game. For those that are unaware, the specific change is detailed as follows. In parties of 2 or more people, boss rewards and intense power crystals can only be acquired by party members that deal a total of 5% damage or more to the boss. This will affect both daily and weekly boss content and monthly boss content to an extent, and I'll get into that a little bit later. We're unsure how this will affect non-KMS content such as Galux, Princess No, Akechi, Rimaru, but this change will not affect quest items. So for example, if you're liberating your Kaiserium that you happen to acquire from Magnus, or you're just overall participating in the Black Mage liberation missions, you will still be able to acquire those boss items. Now, how do you know if you do enough damage? What will tell us if you do enough damage? We are unsure if we're going to be getting the indicator that KMS received in the update following this change, but there will be an indicator that will illustrate beside your HP bars how much damage you have done. There will be 3 colors that you will take note of. If you are in the green, you are clear, you are doing above the required amount of damage. If you are in the blue, you are doing approximately 10% of the boss's HP, and you still are at risk, but you can still qualify for rewards. And if you are in the red or orange area, you will not get any loot. Now, again, when engaging in the boss content, if you do not meet the criteria, your clear will still be consumed for the day or the week. So if you are doing a boss some support buffs, but the person that's carrying you will probably get the most value from that Meso Crystal. Now, over the past few weeks, individuals have been rushing to acquire respective items on various characters, myself included. to ensure that their respective progression is self-sufficient and they can engage in content after the fact. FOMO is real. So I'll leave a note at the end of the video. If you stick to the end of the video, there'll be a way for me to help support you and your respective progression goals. But for now, let's understand, are there any positive implications of this change? My answer, sort of. While it does encourage a bit more party play, if you wish to progress on certain characters, it does help you, I guess, assess whether or not your character is in a good spot to partake in boss content. Some may welcome the change because doing repeated boss carry trains and syncing schedules can become very tedious and daunting and tiresome over a long period of time. Again, I know of a few individuals that have participated in trains for Hard Lucid and Will, and Will alone is a 20-minute boss fight, so you stack that on to all the Hard Lotus and Damians if you're trying to prep Apso gear. It could be very, very, very extensive. Before I get into the negative implications, let's understand what counts towards the 5%. How do you know if the damage you're dealing is actually the damage you're dealing? So first off, you must do 5% across all phases. This is considered, I guess, the real damage or true damage. You cannot just sit there and hope that maybe one little bit of tick will in P1 of a boss will count towards the rest of the boss. You have to be consistent with your damage output. Shield damage, if a boss has a shield or if a boss generates a shield, doing damage to that shield does not contribute to your overall damage output. Spawns in boss fights, so think Lucid Golems, these do not contribute, but you'll have other bosses like Dark Now Gloom that have like little minions that spawn, or even Lotus P1. These do not count as well. If a boss has a segment, so think Will P1 or P2 or Kalos P2, if the boss has a segment and the boss's HP is at 0, doing damage to that segment or additional damage will not count towards. And the last thing, if a boss has a healing mechanic, so like Hard Hilla, again, if you fail a Kalos test, or in the future if you fail a Will test, and they heal a portion, doing damage here does count. Doing damage here does count. Now, I want to get into one of the main reasons why I wanted to make this video today, because I felt it was important to at least get my respective opinion out there, whether or not it matters, but just to share. What are the negative implications of this change? Now, this may be a bit of a bias, but I draw reference from my respective stream content and the experiences. I want to say boss carries help with overall player retention. Most new and returning players are presented with a lot of redundant content that they do not need to worry about, and they're unsure if they need to actually participate or engage. And MapleStory is not the most friendly to guiding individuals of, hey, this is how you should progress, and this is what you need to do, and these are the items that you need. Or how to best invest in their respective characters and account. While carries allow individuals to become more immersed in the content, and they do want to strive for improvements and to intertwine themselves with the respective MapleStory community and those that have like-minded aspirations of progression. While it is not the best metric, as it accounts for the whole GMS population, referencing the achievement system, you can see that once players reach a certain level, I'm going to say level 200, level 210, they start to plateau. There is a general fall off of players, and players don't really get to see any of the other content. They don't invest a lot of time in 5th job content and that's where I feel like a lot of the game does start to unlock. That's when you start to understand whether or not you like a class based off of what their 5th job skills do and how the characters start to play, and whether or not you enjoy training them for endless hours on end. And that should be alarming because you don't get to experience majority of the game by the time you reach this point. The nerf or intended change to the reboot meta will continue a long-lasting tradition of significantly widening the gap between new players and endgame players. And again, while I have a small sample size to reference, I can share that over some time I have continued to help I try to bridge the gap in my own way between early and mid game and can't help but feel that there could have been a different approach. Now, while I haven't invested a lot of time to try to stew on to make the changes a little bit more beneficial for both the respective community and Axon's bottom line, I feel like there could have been a different approach to how this is all handled. And while carry culture may not be encouraged, there has to be, again, a better way of bridging this respective gap. Most endgame players are educated on how to build their characters where they're not negatively impacted by the change all too much. But early game players and returning players overall, they don't know, or they don't know what to work on. They don't know how to get the minimal sources of damage. One thing I do want to express, which has been talked about in some other communities, is classes that fit into a more supportive role. Now, I'm not going to say that this list is holistic, but I'm going to reference bishops, kanas, battle mages, mechanics. They, to an extent, they all contribute significant amount of party damage, and because of this, their party gets stronger. And while they do benefit off of this as well, benefit off of their own buffs, their classes are balanced because around how their buffs help other parties. So they might not do enough damage or contribute enough damage in boss fights, and therefore their party has to wait for them to do enough damage, or they just might not reap the rewards as they should, even if they do invest the same amount of time and funds and resources. And this is definitely, I feel like, something that is overlooked. You might see on Reddit or other mediums that there are KMS players that are outraged and respectively so, complaining for Nexon to make these changes. And while there is a less than 1% chance that this change is not implemented, those who are not in support of these changes should continue to express that. While we are still about a week and a half or so out from the next patch to go live, where these changes are to take effect, I want to say there's still time to voice concerns, voice distaste in your own respective ways. Now, if you watch this video to the very end and you're new to my content, I want to thank you. I want to say please be sure to follow my Twitch for when I'm live, because I do like to provide assistance to those who, again, are working on building up their characters, or who have fun playing the game and they want to get a little bit stronger. I do offer carries up until Normal Lotus and Damien for new followers, so if you require assistance with some character prep before this update goes live, please do not hesitate to reach out. You're also welcome to join my Discord in case you're not live. The links for both my stream and the Discord will be in the description below. I do want to thank you all again for the continued support, and I hope to see you around. Happy mapling, and looking forward to playing with you all.